Welcome everybody to this case study update. Today we've got with us David Pannell out of Fort Worth, Texas. Welcome, David.
Welcome. Thank you.
So you guys probably know his name by now. You've seen last July 1st, I believe it was, we did his first case study. David was at his, I don't remember, at 12-month mark. I think we were at 12 months. And he had, at that time, he had, started out slow, wasn't really using the system as designed. He started doing that in, I think, February of last year. You really became deliberate about it and systematic. And by July, he had 27 in the 27 closings so far. And you finished up with, was it 47 for the year, David?
Yep, 47.
And we're here today. I actually have not heard the update. I wanted to reserve that for this. So there's a lot of questions I have for you, kind of how the year has gone. As you know, it's unfortunate. I get to know so many great people. I don't always get to keep in touch as much as I would like. So David, we haven't talked a whole lot in the last year, just a handful of times. So I'm curious to see what you've learned, what advice you would change that you might have given last year. What advice you'd give anyone who's starting this, who's struggling with this, all those things. So let's jump back in. And you had a baby this year. So we had COVID, we had your firstborn. It's been an interesting year for you. So tell us, let's start with last July. Like, how did the year finish up, and what changes did you make in your business? What lessons did you learn, positive or negative?
Well, we went through, the biggest thing is that we thought we could have other people making phone calls for us. And I mean, it does work. ISAs do work. We went through about 14 to 16 different people. And since this lead source is so long, typically the appointment is not an exact, you call them like an expired, you go on the appointment, or for sale by owner where you could get it probably 3 or 4 weeks. So it's really hard to hire this out without paying a salary in advance per month. But we found that people that don't understand the investment role of buying an actual home, that could walk into a house and immediately tell people that I'm going to buy it for this price because of this situation, it's so hard to hire it out. So we did, after I spoke with you in July, we did really well up until probably the end of September, and we ended up just letting everybody end up going because nobody was producing anything other than what me and Liz was doing on our personal time or personal business. But we ended up with a year of 47 transactions, which was amazing in itself. We bought from you guys 4,100 leads, somewhere close to that. So I don't know I was going to do the math on that, but it's, to me, it's really good. It's our best lead source for the amount of money that we have to spend for it. But we did find out that, I'm just better making the phone call. We reduced it down to 2 days a week that I make the probate calls. We still send the letters, but the biggest thing is I wrote a probate book that's 28 pages that really just dominates their mind when they receive it. It's all about testimonials and reviews and things that we've done in probate in the area. It's geared around storytelling. So it's something that I don't expect them to read it. I really don't expect them to read it except for the front cover and the back cover. But it sets that impression when I do call or when I do send a letter to them. Like the recording I sent you last night that you probably post next week, is that they just know who I am when I'm calling now. And I have that trust. So if it takes me 6 to 7, 8 months, I mean, I'm about to hear from a probate court date, a probate lead we got 18 months ago. They finally go into court after 43 errors. I had to sign off on it. And hopefully in 6 days, it's probably going to be one of my biggest ones. I hope it goes through. But just back to that stuff. It's really hard to hire this out. That's what I found out. It's hard to hire someone that knows the real estate, knows how to close a listing, knows how to do a wholesale. And it just takes too long really to train that into somebody that needs a paycheck. So if you're out there and you're going to get into probate, just make sure that they're focusing on another lead source and probably put them on 1 or 2 days a week to farm the probate leads. and to get on your classes. And we even transcribed 35 of your role play calls, just so we have a book of training. And I narrowed it down to keywords in there, because there's a lot of repeated stuff on the calls, but I've reduced it down to, I think, 40 pages that somebody can read, and they have a really good idea of how to talk to somebody if we do hire again.
And you had a team of 4 ISAs, is that right?
Shoot, at the highest point, we had 8 people making phone calls.
8 at a time. Wow.
But what I learned is that it's a farming type personality. It's not someone like me that's aggressive. It does work for me because I know how to switch it.
Right.
But most personalities, you got somebody that's a high driver or very consistent. In probate, you need someone that's in like a farmer role where they can drive the conversation, but not completely. But then they're consistent on calling people that don't want to talk to them for months at a time. If that makes any sense. So
I want to recap just kind of your business model for anyone who might not remember or might not have seen your original case study. But David is really a great example of the potential of this, because he really gets that David, is there anyone that if they're in probate and they call you, is there anyone you've ever spoken to that you can't help and you can't monetize that?
no, I could make
Right.
money on every contact that calls me.
Right. So and I challenge each and everyone that's watching this. If you're in a position where if there's any scenario where a personal representative reaches out to you, if you can't help them and you can't make money on it directly or indirectly, you're allowed to earn referrals. That's money. And even if it comes a year from now, I still count that. But if you've ever found yourself at a loss of words and a lack of service, like, oh, I don't know what I can do to help this person, I challenge you to up your skill set, because David's a great example of someone who has figured out, and it's why it's hard for his ISAs to keep up with him, because he's using, he's using all of his brain. He's thinking outside of the box to come up with solutions. He's doing investor deals. He's doing brokerage deals. He does creative financing deals. But the number one thing that I want everyone to take away, and we'll link to that voicemail or that recorded call that David mentioned, is this: you actually are showing that you care about the people and you're putting their best interests first. And with that call with Betty, a few things, like the first thing that was really popped out to me is she just knew who you were. You've been chasing her for months and you never actually talked to her.
Uh,
And you didn't bother going through your USP and saying, here's who I am and here's what I do, because you put that marketing piece out in front of you. And I want to come back to that. But she had obviously read your marketing piece and knew who you were and knew what you were capable of. And you recognized that and didn't waste time. You just jumped right in the conversation. And then you made it clear that you would prefer to buy the house. But then when you kind of felt her flinch and she pulled back a little bit, you took the broker route. So what David's talking about, that's hard to get the ISA to realize, is that point where it's really, man, it's almost done by feel. It's like intuitive, right? Like you feel Betty was starting to pull back and be like, well, I don't know if it's really, I think we want to get the most amount of money. And that's where you switched and you chose a different path for the conversation. And that's what's incredibly hard to teach an ISA. So for anyone who's listening, like, if you don't be so discouraged that you'll never try an ISA, just understand David's playing at like this level because he truly has taken this to heart, and he has options for no matter what the situation, he can help and he can make money. And when you're running at this level, you can retire from this one strategy. It's incredibly profitable and incredibly fun.
a little bit.
And it's actually pretty easy once you get the first one or two done this way. Like, it becomes fun. It's almost like it's like the Lego set of real estate, right? You become the transaction engineer and the solution engineer. But so anyways, I'm curious on the marketing piece, and we can, David, you shared a video in our Facebook group. David has a really, actually, yeah. So this is an awesome piece.
It's really about storytelling. It's nothing special. I don't expect them to read. I don't even expect them to open it because I know they're not going to. But it's every other page. First, it's the USP. It's who I am when you initially open it. But I got it folded in a way that it opens up in the middle of the book when someone opens it. So it goes right to a story of somebody we helped that was in probate that was actually facing foreclosure, that we made him an extra $77,000 on the sale of his property, just because, I mean, we actually door knocked this one, I think, and he was about to sell it to an investor in the neighborhood for 77,000 below what we just put on the market for. And we had, at his open house, we had 42 people. So we did take the listing on this one. But that's just the power of it. It's like, okay, I know he doesn't want to sell cheap because that's his equity. And I don't want to take his money from him. But there's some people that just don't want to deal with the process.
Sure.
And I hate to say it, but we will buy the house. We will. And I prefer to buy the house so I could run it in the show like I prefer, clean up the property and remodel it or do whatever I need to do to it. But the situation of the book, I have all those scenarios in there. So it just builds trust.
Let's talk about your marketing sequence now. So last July when we did this, you were hitting the phones 1 call a day for the first 7 days, then falling back to weekly follow-up and then monthly follow-up. And at the same time, you were sending a series of, I believe, 6 letters, right? Or you were doing at least 6 months.
Right.
So how has that evolved? I mean, obviously it seems like you're making the calls yourself. So you're making less calls, but with a higher level skill set. When does that booklet, what's the cost to get that out? And when does it come into play in your sequence? Are you leading with that with 100% of them? Or at what point do you drop that premium mail piece?
No, because this is the premium mail piece. Yeah. This cost me, this book and all the other. So just to give you an idea, I have these 3 mail pieces that go out. So I have the probate book, our coming soon process if they want to list it, but it just filled with examples of what we do to market someone's property. And then 151 steps that we take care of somebody. This is the book that is out there in the internet. You could copy it from anybody. But, to have a coming soon process, to have a probate book that it goes to their mindset, what they need to do. And it comes into play once we find out that they have a house to sell and they are going to sell it.
Okay. So you're day one, let's say now where you're at today, when you get your list, what happens as far as your marketing sequence?
Good. Day one, I divide the leads into 3 categories. I have found, and through your training, and through listening to all the role play stuff, is the spouses kill my mindset.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally do. I will not call someone with the same address. So if I see the same address and they have a house, I'm putting those people in a home valuation 90-day follow-up. So they're going to get a CMA or a link for my Estimate My Home. That's not it, but estimatehome.com, whatever. It's a CMA valuation website. And it's texted them from a number outside of my company. And when they fill it out, I know they usually put 3, 6, 7, 9 months or 2 years they're going to sell. So I don't even have to deal with them. The next division is the kids or the relatives, the aunts, uncles, someone in town that is dealing as the executor administrator. They're the next hardest ones to deal with because they have lost somebody close to them and they really don't want to deal with it. So they're in their probate quicksand the most.
Right.
But spouses are really in quicksand. The ones that I've found, and this is going to be probably the golden ticket of this call, is if you find people that are out of state or out of the area, 2.5 hours out, 3 hours out, I call it the Austin bubble, because if they have to drive more than 3 hours to get to Fort Worth, they don't really want to deal with it. And it's going to take them a longer time to get through it. So as you said yesterday, that the longer they're dealing with this probate, the more frustrated they are getting with the process. The more frustrated they get with the process, the less they want to list the property in the end. I would love to list their house or put it on the market and help them get the most amount of money, but typically they just want to get rid of it. And that's when you come in and buy it as a wholesale, or you could sell it as a wholesale to an investor, or buy it as a flip or in a rental property.
So let's pause right here. I want to put a pin in this. So something that's really notable about your methodology now, it's different. So a lot of folks sort by, if you're a Probate Plus subscriber, now you know which ones have real estate, how much the real estate's worth, how much debt is on it, if there is any, if it's on MLS, if it's already transferred. But even if you don't have Probate Plus, a lot of people are sorting by, in town or out of town. You're sorting not on any real estate variable. You're focusing on the people variables. So
Yeah.
you've got three groups of different kind of social mindsets. You've got people, highly emotional spouses, mostly emotional children, like immediate family members,
Correct.
and then hardly emotional, public administrators or distant relatives that live far away.
Ex-lover or someone that just assigned. Yeah.
So one of the things, if you guys would want to try to do it this way, you can use the short code function in our CRM. You can go in, and when you see matching addresses, you could do short code spouse save, and you can actually customize the all the lead CRM. So it will actually kind of code these for you, and you can rate them spouse, immediate family, unrelated. Like you could have those three categories, and you could use the short codes and then sort by add short code to your column view by going to customize columns, short code, and then that adds it in your list view. So you just simply click ascending or descending, and it'll sort by your three categories. Anyways, for anyone who wants to try this, I wanted to let you know there is a simple way for you to do what David's doing. Now, David, you're still using Sierra Interactive for
Yes.
so David has a custom CRM that you want to tell him how much you've spent on development.
Close to 20,000.
Yeah.
So
So
hey, if you're doing the probate right and you're making $11,000 to $22,000 a contact, you can invest in your business, and I would definitely tell you to do it. If on one point you just mentioned, if you're struggling with probate and you're not getting the contacts, and you're getting a list of say 300 contacts from you guys, narrow it down so your letters are more impactful. So it goes back to the 80-20 rule. If you just want, I hate to say this, but if you're just getting started, you don't have the cash, focus on those out-of-towner people on that list, narrow it down, and then send those letters that you like to them. It doesn't matter what letter you sent to them. They're not going to read it. They're getting 20 others. It's the consistency of sending them something in the mail with your picture and name on it, and then calling them. That's going to get you the most, we'll go ahead.
So we'll jump back to where you were. So you've got your three categories now. You've got highly emotional, somewhat emotional, and probably not emotional based on the relationship to the deceased. Now what?
Then we're making the phone calls to the people that we're just going. So we're going to put the spouses in the CRM. If we have an email address or a phone number, they're going to be assigned. But in Sierra, I need email and a phone number and an address to put them as a lead. So I'm going to put them in. Spouses go into a separate system so I could text them so they could fill out that evaluation tool, or I could retarget them on Facebook to get their information. For the for the kids or relatives, for the kids or relatives, I'm still going to do the same thing, but I'm calling them to see a timeline, to see if they have a house to sell. So they are on the call list, and then the out-of-towners are definitely. So I'm narrowing the list down. I'm going to call those people from the phone call and the information I gather. Say out of 100 people, I talk to 20, which is realistic. Then I'll come out with 9 people that actually probably going to get my packet for the day. In June 28th, I sent out 34 packets in one day. So that tells you how many people I talked to I had 1,600 contacts to go through that I had not talked to. So it's narrowing the list down so I could afford it, or anybody could afford it. You're going to make the calls, see if they have a house to sell, see if they have a court date. They're not going to have a court date when you first get the list, but your older leads will. They'll have some idea when they're going to court. And then you find out the court date, the house, if they have a house they're willing to sell. Then you send them something so overwhelming that they never forget your name.
Yeah. Now, David, you may have said this and I might have missed it. Do you have a dollar amount? Like, what does it cost to produce and mail that piece?
Each book is like $3.25 a piece, and then mailing is another $3. So it's $12 per contact.
Okay.
So if I go to the post office with 34 of them, obviously I'm going to spend $150 to mail it out. Same with you guys. It's the same numbers with you guys. If you're going to mail the whole list, you're spending, I think you said that $12 number sometime in the past. I just remember it.
Yeah, I
Where
mean, if
the
if you're
lifetime of the letters is $12 or something.
if you're sending, 12 months worth of letters at $1.50 a piece, I mean, that's
Yeah.
it adds up. Um, so you're investing $12 on the conversation when you have dialogue and there is real estate. That's worth
Yes.
$12.
Yep.
And then from there, do you customize your follow up based on the conversation you had, or do they go into a standard follow up sequence?
No, they are usually put on depending on the conversation and the court date, they're usually put on at the most 21-day follow-up, so 3 weeks.
Okay.
And then just like you do, when you did probate, you went on appointments Friday and Mondays.
Right.
So I try to do that too now, but I call my probate people on Wednesdays and Thursdays because it gives me time to get that follow-up call by Friday to set the appointment still. But
Yeah.
still, I don't want to work weekends anymore. And I really don't want to work Fridays. So with probate, it's allowed so much flexibility. It's amazing. And I've gotten, I hate to say it, halfway retired. I do want to spend time with my son now. He's 5 months old. And and from what I was gonna say last September, like I said when we first got on the call, is that I did all these deals. We made lots of money. I ended up buying 3 houses, and we remodeled all of them. And it took me all the way till March, and I really didn't make any more phone calls, which I'm sad to say. I closed deals, but then COVID hit, and then a baby came. So I'm just now getting back to work a little bit. And we've done 11, I think, probate so far this year. So, I mean, it's not hitting out of the ballpark, but now I know how to leverage that when I go on appointments. And it's amazing that I'm not waking up every morning wondering what expireds I got to call, for sale by owners I got to call.
So I'm going to say you need to show yourself some grace. Like, have you ever watched a guy walk a tightrope, like at the circus, like that spent a lifetime doing it?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen him just stop and balance? Like it's not true. It's a fallacy. And like you're like me. It's easy for you to be hard on yourself when you took time off or you had other things happening in life. Like you step right back into it because you've got a proven system and you get a consistent result by using the system that you have in
Yeah.
place. And being halfway retired is sure as hell nothing to be ashamed about. That's called living a good life, right?
Yeah.
So I would caution you to not feel ashamed of having the ability to take off and just don't stress out. Go enjoy your baby. Go enjoy your life.
I've never had the flexibility with any lead source or any real estate business.
I'm telling you, probate was the only thing that gave me that too. Like FSBO expired, like everything else was a bunch of damn tail chasing. And probate, like if you guys didn't see, if you've never heard me talk about this, what David was referencing, at one point I said, what if I set boundaries on my time and I never work weekends, I only go out of the office on Fridays and Mondays. That gives me 3 administrative days and 3 prospecting days. So from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Those were sacred prospecting blocks. Nothing happened but outbound phone calls.
Yep.
Everything in between on those days were admin. It was making sure the transaction coordinators were doing their job, talking with title companies, putting out the inevitable fires, and babysitting buyers agents for the most part.
Yeah.
Like the ones that got overly emotional because the closing didn't happen on the exact minute they thought it would. And those were the days I did the work that I didn't really enjoy, but it was necessary for the real estate company to go ahead to operate. Fridays and Mondays were my day, man, because all the work on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday was to set up like back to back appointments on Fridays or Mondays. And a lot of times I would just block out Friday and drive them all to Monday. And
Yeah.
I could do 3 or 4 listings on a Monday morning through afternoon. And by Thursday night, they were all in queue to upload. They hit the market on Thursday night. They were on the hot sheet the next weekend. We had them sold the next week. In a market where there was no urgency, there was no multiple offers, we were pricing consistently 10 to 15% under market, calling for offer on Thursday night. We would call for offers the following Friday, not the next day, 8 days later. And we would not review anything. It was all disclosed in the private remarks that we would present offers to the seller, would review offers the following Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And it was so consistent that I had, you know how much unpredictability there is in your real estate schedule. If you've been in brokerage business for very long, you know what the roller coaster is like, right? It's like one day you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs and now your hair's on fire and like everything's just, chaos around you. It kind of like evened all that out in my business. So people respected my time more when I said, well, David, I've got I meet with families on Mondays or Fridays. Which works best for you? Okay, about 3 or 1. And it helped me set the appointment so much easier. But what was really the interesting, the thing I didn't expect from that is those people they saw me as an authority. They saw me as someone like they really, really respected my time and my level of professionalism. And just like I think I know we talked about this last time, I didn't show up in shorts and a t-shirt and flip-flops, even though that's what I wear pretty much all day, every day. They're in a situation where they're emotional, and I'm being judged against other people in the level of professionalism. So on Friday and Monday I wore an $800 sport coat and a pair of nice shoes and a nice crisp dress shirt, because they deserve that, right? Even though I like to be an entrepreneur and I like to sit here in Under Armour most of the time, I gave them that respect. But once I did those things, like it was clockwork. I mean, Mary Lou Tyler, the author of Predictable Revenue, she was watching me and she's like, can you start giving me your KPIs? And like she used my probate strategy as part of a keynote, like for her, a case study for her keynote speeches for predictable revenue. Because just like you, once you get it right and you get it dialed in, you can literally flip the switch on and off on it if you'd like. But it's better to have it if you can delegate your way out of it.
Yeah.
Where you have good agents, but that comes with its challenges too. It's hard to find a listing agent that will do the job you'll do, especially if that also includes acquisition manager. It's incredibly hard to find that person who will stick around for more than 6 months, because once they learn your system, they'll become your competition. So you just have to be real careful who you bring in and teach the trade secrets to. Okay, so
lucky on that front. I got a guy named Chad Lucko on my team, and he's done 4 the probate this year, and it's just a blessing to have him answer the phone and take some of that weight off of me a little bit, and knowing that now he can walk into a house and get the price that we need if we're going to buy it, or be honest with the people about the listing price. So yeah, absolutely.
So you get your leads, they come in, you segment them kind of based on the mindset, which is a really interesting twist. It's an interesting innovation. So you segment based on mindset, you hit the phones with the easiest ones first and work your way to the hardest ones.
That's right.
The ones who you have dialogue with that do have real estate and an intent to sell that real estate, they get the premium mail piece. Then they get set up on a follow-up. No more than every 21 days, they hear from you and you keep in touch with them until they close. Now, when we talked last year, 65% of your deal flow was on an acquisition, like you were buying the house, and 45% were listings. Has that held up? Are you buying more or buying less? Like, what's your ratio now?
Yeah, I'm really trying to get away from, I do like to list property and I like being a broker, but it's really gone to almost 90-10 at this point. That most of the people that we're getting in touch with, they just want to sell the property. And that gives me, over the last 8 months, I've really taken I went on the Facebook groups and got a bunch of real estate investors, but now I'm down to 16 people that will absolutely buy a house from me. I've narrowed them down to, like, you had people that like long-term rentals, or I've got them categorized for land or whatever lead type that they prefer to buy in. And most times they're not even looking at the houses anymore, because I take a video and I take good photos and I sell it before they even get there. So people know when I send a house out, they better be sending me a contract or a commitment within 5 minutes. And it better be way above my list price that I tell them.
So even if you're in brokerage, but especially if you're a wholesaler, listen to what he's saying. This is something I talk about on usually in Mastery, but you really, you don't just need a buyer's list. And I'll say a buyer's list is somebody you've had dialogue with that would remember your name. If you say you have a buyer's list and they don't know your name, you're lying to yourself and everyone else. Mm-hmm. If you buy some list online, and I don't give a damn who's selling it, if you're buying a list of cash buyers in your market, that is hardly worth the paper it's printed on. Ask me how I know. because that's how I try to. I believe that had value. I have zero relationships with anyone off of those lists.
But you risk, real quick, you risk those people going behind your back and not being loyal to you if you have too big of a list.
Yep.
They're your competition no matter what. So you got to be real careful on that.
But what David has done and what he's talking about is building a real relationship with a buyer. And this is something, in Mastery, I kind of get on my soapbox and rant about this, but you really need to understand, like, a cash buyer you need to get way more specific than that. So yeah, great. They're a cash buyer. Are they a landlord, a fix and flip, a portfolio buyer? Like, what is their standard? How do they underwrite? What is their minimum standard for a deal? And what you'll find is it's all over the place. Some guys are like, well, hell, I don't know, $100 a door sounds good to me. Money's money. And others are like, listen, man, if it's not an 8.35 cap or have a 1.33 debt coverage ratio at an 80% LTV, I can't do it because I got to put it under a blanket commercial lien with my community bank.
Right.
And like, that's a whole mouthful, but that's real criteria that I have. Like, some of my buyers use community bank financing. I go to the community bank. I understand the loan program that they're using, the restrictions the lender places on them. So then I know which deals I can send to that guy. And that's why I can sell a portfolio of 50 or 60 houses with one text message or two at most. And so as you're building your cash buyer list, get to know this person. Are they doing creative financing? Are they doing long-term buy and hold? Are they doing fix and flip? Are they private money lenders? Are they portfolio buyers? Are they commercial buyers, land buyers, timber land buyers, equestrian land buyers? Like, there's all these segments, and the better you understand, the better you can curate the houses you send out. So for example, almost all of my probate houses went to landlords off market, and we would typically put those out at, they'll sell for 80 cents on the dollar. So you put that out at 80 cents on the dollar to a landlord, he's all over it. Boom. It's a 14, 15 cap all day long because all it needs is cosmetic rehab. It doesn't need much. Usually the HVAC is good. The electrical is good. The roof and windows are good. It just literally needs paint, carpet, kitchens, and bathrooms. And in 2 weeks, they've got it rented at a premium workforce housing rate. So they'll pay me 80 cents on the dollar for that. If I send that to a wholesale buyer, a fix and flip, or, someone who that's looking for a deep discount, then what happens to my credibility? When a deal to them is 60 cents on the dollar, and Chad always sends them these houses at 80 cents on the dollar. That's crazy. I mean, that's like hiring a real estate agent to say, hey, we want to look at houses in the $250,000 to $300,000 range. And then they bring you stuff in the 5s and 6s. You're like, well, what the hell am I going to do with this? It doesn't fit my strategy, right? So as you're building your cash buyer list, make sure they're real relationships. You do this at the courthouse steps. You do this at absolute auctions. You do this at the Real Estate Investors Association. You do this in Facebook groups, just like David said, meetup.com. Like, there's tons of places to meet them. You can meet them through the commercial loan officers at community banks are one of the most overlooked opportunities in the real estate investment space. Overlooked because they can introduce you to other investors who have a sound finance strategy and understand it as a business. Overlooked because they can help you understand the finance products available, create a real relationship, and capitalize yourself. So if you don't know community bank officers or loan officers in your market, go to every bank that under $3 billion and get to know the commercial loan officer at that bank. They can connect you with so many people. And these aren't tire kickers. They're not time wasters. They didn't learn this on YouTube. They're running at a level where they can buy a house like that and walk away from the closing table with more money than you do. And I've done that time after time. I remember the first time, I'll leave it with John, but I sold John a house. I bought a house subject to third house I bought here in Roanoke. I bought it subject to, thinking I was going to keep it. Then I decided that I would rather have the cash to reinvest in the business because I was doing more rent to own stuff. So I bought this subject to, ended up wholesaling it. I made a $16,000 wholesale fee for holding a piece of paper for a day. John walked away with the house and a $38,000 check from the closing table. Well, being in residential real estate, I'm like, but wait, how's that possible? It was because he was working with a community bank on a commercial loan program. And I made a $16,000 wholesale fee, which was great for a day's work. John got a house and the money to rehab it and then some. and ended up with, an ARV of probably 110. And so, but those got that's when I followed the money. I went from John to the loan officer who wrote him that loan. I got to know that person. They introduced me to others. So it's a really good way to build quality buyer relationships where you can offload houses in literally in minutes without showing. The other thing I want to point out that David's doing, I've actually been reported to the state for practicing practicing brokerage without a license. I choose not to be a broker. I like to have a salesperson's license. I like it so much. I've had 4 of them. But I don't want to be a broker. I don't want the liability, the expense, just the added headache. It doesn't serve me. So I have an investment brand and I have a brokerage brand. And I've been reported 3 different times. I've had to talk to the state investigator. It never went more than 2 or 3 minutes because I wasn't actually doing anything wrong. But because I had professionally printed signs with my LLC, like there's a disclaimer on my signs that says managing member of Resolutions LLC is a licensed real estate agent. No agency relationship exists on this property, yada, yada. Like I put a disclaimer on my sign because I know tattletales are out there, right? But I have these professional real estate signs that go in the yard. I do professional photography. And then I'll put it out to my list. Well, shit, a wholesale deal will go like that. If you just, because the power is off in a lot of these houses, like if you just do long exposure photography like HDR where it looks nice, where everyone else is running around with their cell phone taking pictures, trying to hustle a deal over text message. Like it's unreal the amount, like you don't get people beating you up on your price by your investors. They pay what you ask and they don't even come see the house most of the time. And John was that guy. Like he's like, he knew if it was a Chad house, he didn't even have to drive across town. He's like, yeah, shit, I'll see it when I close. And the bankers didn't come look at it. John didn't look at it. I mean, I sold to one of my guys 58 houses. I didn't leave my desk the entire time. I used DocuSign to get the listing. I sent out an email to about 15 people. And of those 15, 2 engaged and made offers. And of the 2, 1 closed. We never went and saw a single house. We actually didn't even go to the closing. I didn't do any, I know both of the guys, but I didn't meet either one of them throughout the whole process. And like I think it was 30 days. But you can sell 58 houses in a single package, cash deal, no contingency with a 30-day close by not leaving your desk if you do this. So anyways, that was a long rabbit hole, but I think it's important that people understand you're not just going to like watch YouTube a couple of times and haphazardly go into this and get the same result David's getting. You need to be deliberate and professional about it. And that, like, pay attention. Like David's a mentor. He's here sharing his time. That's why I'm pulling so much out of this and pointing out what I think is important for you guys to take away. Because if you go out and just say, well, I've got 50 cash buyers on my list and nobody will buy my deals. The question is why?
Yeah.
And you can learn from people like David, like what it takes to sell a house with 1 text message in 3 minutes. Yeah. And it's because of the way he's doing business. And that's what's so valuable about I appreciate your willingness to share so much and be here and even do it again, because you guys can learn so much from people like David and watching how he's running his business.
And that really goes into building your list of attorneys too. When I'm on the calls with you guys, everyone's like, how do I build a list of all these attorneys in town? And really it's as you go through the process of helping these families, you're going to meet their attorney. And I've got, I think now 6 attorneys that I could communicate with, and they'll pick up the phone when I call them because we did a deal successfully with them. And now they're giving me referrals. Yeah. So it's not about going out and getting 100 attorneys that don't know you, sending 100 packets or letters out to attorneys, which in the beginning, if you want to, fine, but it's the same with that as the investor list. It's just, I guess less is more. Less is more.
Quality relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
So of the 11 you've done this year so far, how many of those came from attorneys? Any of those?
Just 1 so far.
Okay, so
just 1, and then 1 came from online. So that's another lead source now. That once you have enough videos or testimonials online of helping other probate families, you could do your own SEO, or I had somebody in my CRM that inherit a property that we weren't even on the probate list or flagged. And they called me and said, "Hey, I've been watching your stuff for a year. I think you could help me." They didn't talk to anybody else.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, it's just that's you got your list of your spouses, you got your relatives, you got your out of towners, but then you got online resources. Once you have probably 9 to 10 deals closed and you make them public, and you get your attorney network built up. This process is going to take 18 months to 3 years to build up, like any source. But man, once you're rolling, it's very beneficial.
And once your flag is in the sand, it's incredibly hard to unseat you. I mean, just like look at the top REO agent in your market.
Yeah,
Go in and try to take the Fannie Mae or the HUD account from that person. You're not
yeah,
going to do it. Like
no,
it's based in a solid, real relationship, and they will laugh your ass out the door. Now, it's not to say that you can't, but you're going to have to work your way up, and you're going to slowly gain market share if you're going to take that guy off the top of the hill.
right.
Probate is the same way. In the next 45 years, you have $136 trillion in wealth that will transfer from
Yes,
the 76 million baby boomers that are left. Won't be with us beyond, most of them won't be with us beyond 2060. It's a dark statistic, but it's happening. Just like technology is changing the world, the world we live in, this is changing real estate. It's called the silver tsunami. It's threatening the business models of nursing homes, funeral facilities. Elder care is not sure what they're going to do about this. So we're at the forefront of one of the biggest opportunities, probably the biggest opportunity you will see in your real estate career. And if you do what David's done and you build the foundation and put your flag in the sand now, by the time you retire, you'll have a sellable business around this one strategy. Someone will buy this because they're not going to be able to unseat you. They
mm-mm.
can't just take over your market share. You create a blue ocean, and that becomes an acquisition target. So you have a real business to sell and a real retirement plan.
So
And
true.
if you're not doing that, I hope you are, David. Like, build it because you're becoming a brand. Like, people in your sphere of influence are now starting to say, "Hey, that guy can help me. I got this house I don't know what to do with. It's a bigger, I've never done anything like this. He can help me." So make that brand a scalable and a sellable brand. And this will be like the best money, best time you ever spent in real estate. And what I love about it so much is it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done in real estate. Like, you shared that one voicemail of a lady that said she literally viewed you as an answer to her prayer. And that's happened to me like dozens and dozens of times. I've heard that. And if you're in the Bible Belt, you're going to hear it more often. But
Now I
like,
get to send that to clients though, and that's in
yeah,
now my action plans. When I do send my packets out, 3, 4, or 5 weeks or 6 months down the road, they get this random voicemail of Dave Pannell helping this lady, and they just like, "Oh, I got your voicemail. That was amazing." So,
yeah.
it helps.
And it's so powerful. So anyways, I know you've got a closing to go to, so I'm gonna wrap it up. Any last advice you'd like to share? Anything you want to get through to the group?
Yeah, I think this call really has to, leverage it towards Probate Plus, because now you can narrow your leads down dramatically. I mean, you still got letters. You still got to send letters. If you're unwilling to make phone calls, which is the death of anybody, you got to make phone calls to these people,
Yeah.
even if they're screwing with your mindset in the beginning. You don't have to say that call with Betty was not perfect, but the flow was perfect, and the lead to the appointment was perfect. I had to think on my feet, and every probate person's different. So study the script, study the lines, study the key words, but don't think you have to say it verbatim on these. Because and then one last thing is the target of people is the biggest wealth transfer of people that are helping their parents sell their property, and they are typically 60 to 55 to 70 years old. So get out of your own way about me, or talking to them like they're your friend. You got to talk to them highly professional. You got to come across to them like you're going to help them, not help yourself. So it's take some courses on the language patterns of these people that are older, because it's going to help you when you're on appointments. That's why I wear a tie. That's why I dress up. I clean my car before I get there. I do everything that they know that I'm a young professional and that I'm there to help them. I'm not there because I took a weekend class and I let them know that I shine my shoes, for God's sakes. I show up as that professional as they would show up to an interview themselves.
It's really important, and that just shows how empathetic you are. And that's really, a lot of people ask me what the secret to all this is, or like the key to all this, guys, is empathy. Is like 99% of getting this right, is really appreciating the position they're in, appreciating their generational expectations of who a business person is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a business person doesn't show up in a dented up pickup truck with paint down the side of it and a pair of Carhartts and a stained white t-shirt. Like a business person shows up in a washed car, in a tie, and also where you're at. Like if, David's in Texas, like so pay attention
Not the BMW either, Chad. People need to know that don't drive up in your fancy Audi or your BMW or your fancy Lamborghini to appointments.
yeah.
That's not going to help you with somebody that just lost a family member 6 months ago that need to sell something. That's the wrong impression as well too. You're not trying to attract the luxury client. So
I take the safe road. I show up in a Duramax. Like it can go either way. It can be luxury or work, right?
yeah, there you go.
The ultimate utility vehicle. But yeah, I mean, the key is like, you guys really, really pay attention to how David uses empathy. I mean, the way he speaks, the way he dresses, the way he designs marketing pieces, the way he segments his database. That's the common thread through everything he's doing. And that's the foundation. I believe that's the foundation of your success, is being empathetic and compassionate, and quite frankly, just giving a shit for real.
Yeah.
And caring about the outcome for others more before the outcome for yourself. And even when it's disappointing, and I heard this in your voice on that call with Betty, I know exactly what it feels like when you want this house because it's in the right zip code, the right school zone, the right street. And you're like, oh, this is going to be such a fun project. No.
Yeah.
She actually really needs to sell this house for more money because her motivation is not that high. Okay. And then you put on your realtor hat and you get out the listing agreement and pass the blue pen.
Yeah.
But it's like, damn it, I wish I could have bought that one. And I've done it so many times. And I heard your voice shift. But what I observed was you put her best interest before your own, even though it probably cost you about $80,000 on that phone call.
Yeah.
But you did the right thing. You have no trouble sleeping at night, and the next deal will come to you, and you'll make that up.
She'll be a good, even the listings that probate's a tough process for them to get through. So when you show up as the guiding light, the expectation is already met before you even do any business with them. So when you come through for them, the testimony you could get on video camera, even on your iPhone, is going to blow everything out of the water and get you. Every video testimony you'll get is going to be worth 10 deals to 12 deals in the next 10 years. It's at least worth one deal a year of somebody you have not met that's going to give you another deal. So no matter how you monetize these contacts, you just always got to take care of the people.
Yeah, the stories are some of the best currency in this niche. Like just having people that your clients can call, that they can watch on video, that they can read. I mean, David, you've got voicemails, you've got call recordings. I mean, you have a variety of different ways that they can kind of vet you. And that's what was really interesting. Like all the come list me calls, which if you've been doing this for longer than 6 months, you start to get a pretty consistent stream of come list me calls, about 1%. So if you have 100 leads a month, you could expect one come list me call at least a month, pretty much every month after 6 months. But what was really interesting about those is they spoke like they knew me. Like I had talked to them before, and I'm like embarrassed. I'm like, Sam, I'm sorry. Have we ever talked before? And he's like, oh, no. We got your letter and we went to the website that you had on there, and we've checked you out on LinkedIn and Facebook and Zillow and these other places, TrueLia or whatever that site is. We feel good about you. Just come on over. And I'm like, holy crap. And it was really that easy. So like they do go look for this stuff, and they do listen to your testimonials, and they do read every word of your website. So you should capture every single story that you can as you do this, no matter how small. Capture that story and say, you know what, here's how we help this person save $77,000.
Yeah.
Here's how we couldn't help this person because their ego was in the way. They listed, but they dumped it to this investor and lost $50,000 in equity. But here's the listing from the investor and what he made on this house.
Yeah.
Don't let your family give away generational wealth. Let our team preserve generational wealth for your family.
You can send it better. Wow.
Yes, lock that in. Send it
Yeah.
to the printer, David.
That's awesome. And people have to know on this call too is that please don't call me to recruit me on your team. I love to run my own business. I like to do my own thing. So please don't call me to recruit me on your team at all.
Yeah, and I want to back you up on that. So David is extremely generous to be here, and being transparent. He doesn't have to be, and he actually has reached out to us because he wants to give. But you need to respect the boundaries that he's setting. Please don't harass him or try to recruit him or try to take all of his marketing stuff or have him build your business for you. Take what you've gotten here, be grateful for it, interact with David in our Facebook group, but understand that if you were in his position, would you really want someone doing that, right? So just be respectful, be reasonable, and be grateful that he's willing to do this with us. So Dave, I can't thank you enough, man. I really, if you come back anytime you want, I really appreciate that you're part of our community and always willing to contribute. And I just love talking about success. I like seeing you do what you're doing.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And this is going to be the biggest wealth transfer. So if you're not investing with all the leads and you were like me for the first year, I was in the shadows on y'all's calls, not saying a damn word. I was that guy. And I know there's people out there that think it's way too expensive. And I mean, there is an expense to doing this, but man, it is 12-fold, 14, 15-fold ROI return.
Yep.
And I can't stress, I should have started 5 years ago when I first found you guys. And that's when I think y'all started. And I just put it off for a long time because I was sending handwritten notes to these probate people in Tarrant County and just trickling in the business, not even making the phone call. So you guys also have come through huge for me on the training wise, on the letters, on the phone calls. So it just all correlates. I really appreciate you guys too.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, man. And we'll have David back soon, guys, for an update. You can always find him in our Facebook community, All the Leads Mastermind. And he's pretty active in there. If you have questions, please step up. But again, be respectful. And we'll see you for the next case study, Dave. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I don't want to make anybody's phone calls for him.